Hello everyone, my name's Stonesy Boy and welcome back to Reading with Stonesy. Today we're reading chapters 32 to 33, page 58 to 358 to 373. Part 4, this is the final episode for this book. So no learning corner of the day. And it's the end. Let's begin. Chapter 32, Troubled Pilgrimage. All public cars are on the grid, but Scythes can't track their movements until their navigational data is dropped back to the background. It happens every 60 minutes, but that's how often you'll have to change cars. Scythe Curious instructions had come at Citra quickly. He only hoped she could remember them all. She could do this. Her apprenticeship had taught her to be self-sufficient and resourceful. She ditched the first public car of the small town right on time. She was worried that there might not be many vacant public cars in the Charlemagne region, especially this remote of an area, but the Thunderhead was remarkable at projecting local needs, and all things. There always seemed to be a supply of fit to demand. She had already changed into the coarse tonus frock and had pulled its hood over her head. It was remarkable how people avoided her. Two vehicle changes every hour meant that her pursuers were always right behind her. She realized that she had to cut a weaving course, like cargo ships in mortal age wartime, to throw them off their path, keep them from anticipating where she'd go next. For over a day, she could never sleep for more than just an hour at a time. At several instances where there were only road and no civilization for long stretches, she had to be crafty, ditching the car before arriving in town, where a chill Argentine Scythe, an officer of the local blade guard, were already waiting for her. She actually walked right past one Scythe, certain she had been caught, but she was smart enough to cross downwind of his DNA detector. The fact that the Scythes themselves were supervising the hunt and not leaving it to a blade guard made Citra feel all the more terrified, yet oddly important too. Once you beat Buenos Aires, take a hypertrain north across Amazonia to the city of Caracas. As soon as you cross the border into Amazonia, you'll be safe. They won't lift a finger to help Xenocres or detain you. Citra knew the reason for this came to historical studies. Too many Scythes from their other regions gleaned out of jurisdiction while on vacation in Amazonia. There's no law against it, but it has made an Amazonian Scythedom uncooperative and openly obstructionist when it comes to assisting Scythes from any other region. The problem was in the train of Buenos Aires. They'd be waiting for her in the force at every train station or an airport. She was saved by a group of Tonus led to Isthmus. We seek a great fork in the umbilical between north and south, they told her, thinking she was one of them. There are rumors it is hidden in the ancient engineering work. We believe it be sealed within one of the gates of the Panama Canal. It took her all her will not to laugh. Will you join us, sister? And so she did, just long enough to bore the train north right under the noses of more watchful eyes than she could count, holding her breath, not out of fear, but so she could trip any DNA sensors in the station. There were 7 Tonus in the group. Apparently, this branch of the cult only traveled in groups of 7 or 12, as per musical mathematics, but they're willing to break the rule and add her to the number. Their accent suggested they weren't from American continents, have been somewhere in Euroscandia. There have your journeys taken you, one of them asked, a man who seemed to be the leader. He smiled whenever he spoke, which made him all the more off-putting. Here and there, she told him. What is your quest? My quest? Don't all wandering pilgrims have a quest? Yes, she said. I seek an answer to the burning question, is it A flat or G sharp? And one of the others said, don't even get me started. There are no windows for where she is no scenery to be in the subsurface vacuum tube. Citra had traveled by air and on standard maglev trains, but the narrow, claustrophobic nature of a hypertrain made her uneasy. The Tonans, who had been used to all sorts of travel, weren't bothered. They discussed legends, debating which were true, which were false, and which were somewhere in between. We've all been to the pyramids of Erisberia, to the Great Wall of Panasia, in search of true clues of the Great Fork's whereabouts, their leader said. It's a pilgrimage that matters. I doubt any of us would know what to do if we actually found it. Once the train reaching a cruising speed of 800 miles per hour, Citra excused herself to the restroom, where she splashed water in her face, trying not to let the exhaustion overtake her. She had forgotten to lock the door, but had she done that, her journey might have played out much differently. A man burst in on her. Her initial thought that just as he didn't know someone was there, but before she could turn, before she could do much of anything, he had a whole gold-edged blade to her throat, positioned to do the most damage. You have been selected for gleaning, he said, speaking in common, but it was pronounced accent that must have been Portuzonian, which is primary language of Amazonia. His robe was deep forest green. She remembered reading somewhere that the Scythes of that region all wore the same green robe. You're making a mistake, Citra said, before she could slice her neck open. Then tell me my mistake, he said, but be quick about it. She tried to come up with something and would say, on the other hand, on the truth, but she realized there was nothing else. I'm a Scythe's apprentice. If you try to glean me, I would just be revived, and you would be disciplined for not checking your ring first to see if I had immunity. He smiled. It is as I thought. You're the one they are looking for. He took the blade away from her neck. Listen to me carefully. There are Chillerine Scythes aboard the train disguised as regular passengers. You can't avoid them, but if you wish to remain out of their clutches, I suggest you come with me. Citra's instinct was tell him no, but she didn't find her own. But her judgment pulled rank on instinct, and she went with him. He led her to the next car where, even though the train was crowded, there was an empty seat beside him. He introduced himself as Scythe Pozzolo of Amazonia. What now? Citra asked. We wait. Citra pulled off her hood over her head, and sure enough, a few minutes later, a man inside his way forward from the every back car, dressed like another traveler, but moving slowly and consulting an object in his palm that looked like a phone, but was not. Don't flee, whispered Scythe Pozzoletto to Citra. Give him no control of the situation. The device began to click like a Geiger counter, and the man reached them. He stopped, his quarry found. Citra Terranova, he said. Citra calmly removed her hood. Her heart was pounding when she didn't know what to do. Congratulations, she said. You found me. Gold star for you. He was thrown off the expression, but didn't stop him. I'm taking you into custody. He pulled out a jolt baton. Do not try to resist it. It will only make it much worse for you. Now Scythe Pozzolo turned to him. On whose authority do you do this? On the joint authority of Laturo, High Blade of the Chillerine region, and High Blade Xenocrates of Mid-America, neither of which you have any jurisdiction here. He chuckled. Excuse me, but no excuse me, said Pozzoletto, with what right level of indignation. We crossed into Amazonia at least 5 minutes ago. If you attempt to press your advantage in any way, she has every right to defend herself with lethalish force, even against the Scythe. So, Citra took as cue to pull out a hunting knife she was concealing with her frock. She stood to face him. Make one move of that baton, they'll have to reattach your hand. Behind him, a porter came into the train car. What a commotion was. Sir, said Citra, this man is Chillerine Scythe. He wasn't wearing his ring or robe. Isn't that against the law of Amazonia? Never had Citra been so happy to have studied her Scythe history. The porter looked the man over, and his eyes narrowed to a suspicious glare, suspicious enough for Citra to know where his allegiances lay. Furthermore, all foreign Scythes must register before crossing our border, he said, even when sneaking in by tunnel. The Chillerine Scythe's temper quickly began to boil. Leave me to my business, or I'll glean you where you stand. No, you won't, said Scythe Paluzzo in much matter-of-fact calm as Citra grinned. I've granted him immunity. You can't glean him. What? Then Amazonian Scythe reached his hand right up to the porter's face, who grabbed it and kissed his ring. Thank you, Your Honor. This man threatened violence against me, Citra told Porter. I demanded he put off the train at the next stop, along with any other disguised Scythes he's traveling with. That would be my pleasure, said the porter. You can't do that, the Scythe insisted, but a few minutes later, he found out otherwise. With her pursuers kicked off the train, Citra enjoyed the respite from a relentless cat and mouse game. Her cover blown, she pulled on the street clothes that fit her from someone's luggage, jeans and a flowery blouse that wasn't her style, but the clothes were adequate. The Tonus were disappointed, yet didn't seem all that surprised when she actually found one of them. They left her with a pamphlet she promised she'd read, but suspected she wouldn't. Whatever your destination, Scythe Pozzolo told her, you have to change trains to Amazonia's central station. I suggest you meander through several different outbound trains before leading to the one you're actually taking, so that the DNA detectors will send those chasing you every which way. Of course, the more she wandered the station, the more likely she'd be seen. It was worth the risks to confound the DNA detectors and send the pursuers on a wild goose chase. I don't know why they're after you, Scythe Pozzolo said as the train pulled into the station, but if your issues resolve and you do get your ring, you could come back to Amazonia. The rainforest stretches across the whole continent, as it did in its most ancient days, and we live in its canopy. You would find it marvelous. I thought you didn't like foreign Scythes, she told him with a smirk. There's a difference between those we invite and those who intrude, he told her. Citra did her best to leave DNA traces on half a dozen trains before slipping onto the bound for Carcass. On the North Amazonia coast, there were agents out looking for her. She didn't spot them, but she couldn't be so cavalier as to think she was in harm's way. Some of the city of Carcass, Scythe Curia instructed her to follow the northern coastline east until coming to a town called Playa Pintada. She would have been avoid public cars or any other mode of transportation that would pinpoint her location. But she found the closer she got, the more her resolve hardened. She would get there and complete his troubled pilgrimage, even if she had to walk the rest of the way. How does one face a murderer? Not a socially sanctioned killer, but an actual murderer. An individual who, without the blessing of society, or even its permission, permanently ends a human life. Citra knew that in the world at large, the thunderhead prevents such things. Certainly people get pushed in front of trains or under trucks, or off rooftops in the heat of frustrated moments, but in which a broken is already repaired. Amends are made. An ordained Scythe, however, who lives outside the thunderhead's jurisdiction, has no such protection. To be revived is not automatic for a Scythe, it must be requested. but who is there to advocate for a Scythe felled by foul play? Which means that although Scythes may be the most powerful humans on Earth, they may also be the most vulnerable. Today, Citra vowed to be an advocate for the dead. She would deliver justice for the fallen mentor. Clearly, the Thunderhead would not stand in her way. It had given her the murderer's name, so had Scythe Curie when she had sent her on a mission, the final phase of her training. Everything rested on the action she would take today. Playa Pintada, the painted beach. Today, the coastline was strewn with large chunks of twisted, gnarled driftwood in the dwindling sunset. They seemed like arms and legs of terrible creatures, slowly heaving themselves out of the sand. Citra crouched behind the driftwood dragon, hiding within its shadow. A storm was moving in the north, building over the sea and rolling inexorably toward the shore. Distant lightning would already be seen playing deep within the darkness, and thunder rolled in counterpoint of the crashing surf. She had only a handful of weapons. She had started with a pistol, a switchblade, and a hunting knife. The rest had been too hard to conceal, so she had to cast them off before boarding the train to Buenos Aires. It was barely a day ago, yet it felt like a week. The home she watched was a single-story boxed dwelling. Like many of the homes in the breach, most of it was hidden behind palms and blooming birds of paradise. There was a back patio that overlooked the beach on the other side of the low hedge. Lights were on inside. A shadow periodically moved behind the curtains. Citra reviewed her options. Where she already a Scythe, she would glean him, following Scythe Curie's methods. A blade through the heart, quick and decisive. This was one instance where she didn't doubt her ability to do it, but she wasn't a Scythe. Many lethal attack would merely render him deadish, and an Abu drone would arrive within minutes to take him to the revived. When she needed to do was incapacitate him, take him down but not out, and then extract the confession. He was working for another Scythe or acting alone. Was he bribed like a witness? Was he motivated by a promise of immunity? Or was he a professional vendetta against Faraday? Then, once she knew the truth, she would bring the man and the confession to Scythe Pozzolello or anyone in the Amazonia Scythedom, and that way not even Xenocres would squelch the proof. It would be clear to her that any wrongdoing, and the true culprit would receive their punishment. It waits the Scythe killer. Perhaps Citra would stay there in Amazonia then, never have to face the House of perhaps the Winter Conclave. At the last traces of twilight, she heard the sliding glass doors whoosh open. She peered over the rough edge of the driftwood, see him come onto the patio and look at the approaching storm. He was perfectly silhouetted against the light shade, the paper target of the shooting range. He couldn't make it easier for her. He pulled out her pistol. At first, she leveled it right at his heart. Force of habit went from her training. Then she lowered it to his knee and fired. Her aim was perfect. He wailed and went down. Citra raced across the sand, leaped at the hedge, and grabbed him by the shirt, both hands in the grasp. "You're gonna pay for what you've done," he snarled. When he saw the man's face, familiar, too familiar. Her first instinct was to think it was another layer of treachery. It wasn't until he spoke she accepted the truth. "Citra?" Scythe Faraday's face was a mask of pain and disbelief. "Citra, oh God, what are you doing here?" She didn't let him go out of shock. Scythe Faraday's head hit the concrete, knocking him out and making horror of the moment all the worse. She wanted to call for help, but who would help her after what she'd done? She lifted his head again, cradling it gently as about a shattered knee flowed between the patio stones, turning the sand in the cracks of the red mortar, dyeing it brown. Immortality cannot temper the folly or the frailty of youth. Innocence is doomed to die in senseless death at your own hands, as casually as the mistakes we never undo. So we lay to the rest of the wide-eyed wonder we once thrived upon, replacing it with scars in which we never speak, too knotted for any amount of technology to repair. With each gleaning I commit, with each life taken for the good of humanity, I mourn the boy I once was, whose names I sometimes struggle to remember, and when I long for a place beyond immortality where I can, in some small measure, resurrect the wonder to be that boy again. From the Gleaning Journal of H.S. Faraday. Chapter 33. Both the Messenger and the Message. Citra carried him inside. She set him on the sofa and made a tourniquet to staunch the blood. He groaned, beginning to rose, and then he broke a tender surface of consciousness. His first thought was of her. "You should not be here," he said, his voice weak and slurred, an effect of his pain nanites flooding his system. Still, he grimaced in bleary agony. "We have to get you to the hospital," she told him. "This is too much for the nanites to handle." "Nonsense. They've already taken the edge off the pain. As for healing, they'll do the job without intervention." "But I have no other option," he told her. "Going to a hospital would alert the Scythedom that I'm still alive." He shifted position, grimacing only slightly. "Between nature and nanites, my knee will heal. It will take time, of which I have no shortage." She elevated his leg, bandaged it, and then sat on the floor beside him. "You are so resentful of my leaving that you exact your revenge in flesh?" he asked, only half joking. "Are you so offended that I managed a method of secretly retiring instead of actually gleaning myself?" "I thought you were someone else," she told him. "Someone named Gerald van der Gans." "My birth name," he told her. "A name I surrendered when I became Honorable Scythe Michael Faraday, but None of these explains your presence here. I freed you, Citra. You and Rowan both. By faking my own gleaning, you were both freed from the apprenticeship. You should be back with your old life, forgetting why I plucked you from it. So why are you here? You mean you don't know? He pulled himself up slightly to see so he could see her more directly. Don't know what? So she told him everything. How instead of being freed, she and Rowan ended up with the Scythe, Curie, and Goddard. How Xenocrates had tried to pin Faraday's murder on her, and how Scythe Curie had helped her to get him. As she spoke, he put his hands to his eyes as if he might gouge him out. Think I was complacent here while all this was going on. How could you not know? She asked. For her and mine, she always seemed to know everything, even the things he could not possibly know. Scythe Faraday sighed. Mary, Scythe Curie, that is the only member of the Scythedom who knows I'm still alive. I'm completely off grid now. The only way to reach me would be in person, so she sent you. You are both the messenger and the message. The moment became uncomfortable. Thunder rumbled in from the sea, much closer now, the flash of the lightning brighter. It is true you died 7 deaths. Is it true you died 7 deaths for her? Cetra asked. He nodded. And her for me. She told you that, did she? Well, it was a very long time ago. Outside, the rain finally began to fall, surging in fits of starts. I love the way it rains here, he told her. It reminds me of some forces of nature can nearly be subdued. They are eternal, which is far better than immortal. So they had sat, listening to the soothing rumble of the rain until Citra began to grow too weary to even think. So what happens now? She asked. Very simple, actually. I heal and you rest. Anything beyond that, this is a conversation for a future date. Then he pointed. The bedroom's in there. I expect a full night's sleep from you, followed by a recitation of your poisons in the morning, in order of toxicity. My poisons? In spite of his pain and drug-induced haze, Scythe Faraday smiled. Yes, your poisons. Are you my apprentice or not? Citra couldn't help but smile right back at him. Yes, your honor. I am. The longer we live, the quicker the days seem to pass. How troublesome that is when we live forever. Years seem to pass in a matter of weeks. Decades fly with no milestones to mark them. When we become settled in the inconsequential drudgery of our lives, till suddenly we look at ourselves in the mirror and we face what we barely recognize, begging us to turn a corner and be young again. Are we truly young when we turn the corner? We hold the same memories, the same habits, the same unrealized dreams. Our bodies may be spry and limber, but toward that end, what end? No end, never an end. I do believe mortals strive more heartily toward their goals, because they knew that time was of essence. But us? We can't put things so far off effectively of those doomed to die, because death has become the exception instead of the rule. The stagnation that I so frequently glean on a daily basis seems epidemic that only grows. There are times I feel I am fighting a losing battle against an old-fashioned apocalypse of the living dead. From the Gleaning Journal of H.S. Curie. Well, it seems that I have lied to you all. This is not, in fact, the final episode of Scythe. This is, in fact, the 18th episode of Scythe. Which means we have a lot more of book to go. Somehow, in my numbers and my many, many maths, I have messed up. Somewhere. But I really don't know where. Now, normally this would be the time I would say, now, this is when we end here, this is where we go here. But, honestly, I don't know where to go from here. I've never had my numbers be wrong before. So, I don't think there will be a learning corner. I think this will just be slight editing. Off camera, of course. I'll be back later. See ya.